Welcome to Phoenix Masonry Live.
A show about Masonic Museum artifacts,
Interviews,
Masonic history,
and much more.
I am Frederick L. Milligan, Executive Director of Phoenix Masonry.
And I am Elena Llamas, Director of Public Relations for Phoenix Masonry.
And we are here to
celebrate
our Freemasonry.
Celebrando nuestra francmasonería.
And that's what we do here. We celebrate our Freemasonry. And if you are a Mason watching us, we hope that you are celebrating your Freemasonry, and we invite you in to celebrate with us today. And if you are not a Freemason, we hope that you might become one, because we are very proud of what we do and what we have accomplished. And we invite you in to celebrate with us too. And today we are celebrating with Patrick Craddock. Patrick is the Mason behind the Craftsman's Apron, where you can find hand-painted Masonic aprons, among other items, such as custom ties, large banners, cufflinks, t-shirts, officers' jewels, and collars. Welcome to the show, Patrick, and welcome to Celebrating Freemasonry with us.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Fred. It's a pleasure to be here today.
So, you know, I look at what you've done, and I see somebody that's being talked about all over the United States. My goodness, Patrick, you have a major accomplishment here in what you've done. And and it all started because of, well, I really shouldn't say that, because I shouldn't be telling your story. You should be telling your story. So it all started because of what, Patrick?
Well, it all started because way back in 1991, I was a young American Civil War reenactor. And as such, I wanted to incorporate my membership in Masonry into my portrayal as an American Civil War soldier, blue or gray. And I looked for someone who could make me an apron, because the unit that I reenacted at that time with, was a very authentic. If they didn't have it during the period, or if it wasn't sewn correctly or have the right materials, we didn't use it. So I looked for someone to make me a period correct apron. Found very few people that actually knew what one looked like, and no one that could make me one. So I took it upon myself to make an apron. And at the same time, I made two others for brothers that I was very close to that I reenacted with, and I gave them away as tokens of friendship and brotherly love. And it was surprising that it didn't take long before I had other brothers asking me for aprons. And it got to the point where a lot of people I'd never met, didn't know, were calling me, asking me for these. And from that, the Craftsman's Apron has developed.
Well, something.
Now, I know you do aprons painting on lambskin, but I look at your website. I get a little bit confused. Maybe I'm just the usual idiot, but I don't understand. Do you do cloth aprons too? Do you actually do sewing and cloth aprons, or do you just do the lambskin paintings?
So through the Craftsman's Apron, everything I offer is on lambskin. I have done aprons that were on cotton and on silk, but those are quite rare. I haven't done many of those, although it is appropriate historically to make them out of that. But for my business, when I make an apron, every apron that I sell today is made out of lambskin.
Okay, Elena, take it away.
Yeah, one thing that really gets to me is that you were not an artist before you started making aprons. What did you do, and how did you get instantly so good at painting these?
Well, I wouldn't say it was instantly, but so all of my background is in history. I have a collection of history degrees, as it were. An undergraduate degree in history from the University of Mississippi, a master's degree in history from Middle Tennessee State University with an emphasis in historic preservation,
Oh,
and I worked on my doctorate in history at the University College of Wales. So history's always been my passion, and you can see that in my aprons because I draw inspiration from historic examples.
absolutely.
That's where I started from with this. That's what drew my attention to the designs that I was producing, was to really reflect the elegance of the historic aprons.
So
But
are you saying that your first apron attempts weren't, did you use those? It wasn't your very first apron that you were happy with? You have some horror stories maybe?
no, I really don't. I really don't have any horror stories.
Give me hope. I can't paint anything.
I was very pleased and still pleased with the first apron that I had produced. But let's just say that with practice comes improvement.
Excellent. Well, your goal, as you stated on your website, the craftsmansapron.com, just Craftsman's Apron without the V. Your goal is to help Freemasonry regain the elegance and dignity that once was its hallmark. Do you want to talk about the honor, the elegance, the appreciation for a handmade apron as opposed to a different kind of apron?
Well, sure. So there's a couple of different things that we could touch on here with that. Is the one of the things the Craftsman's Apron is doing today, as you say, is trying to get back to the elegance of our more time-honored aprons, the historic aprons, where craftsmanship was not only in the design, not only the painted image on the apron, but the quality of the construction as well. Today we live in what I call the Walmart society mentality. Everything that you can get for the cheapest price as possible, rolled back now to even lower prices. That I firmly believe in the old adage that you get what you pay for, and craftsmanship is something that doesn't come at a cheap price. Absolutely. And I also believe that if we're going to honor all the tenets of Masonry, the things that we should all be looking at to improve ourselves as individuals, that one of those things is to respect the institution, to show respect for the institution. And if you lessen the value of something, typically it has less value. And so if you improve the value of something, it heightens the institution as a whole. And so, and I view Masonry very much that way, and the products that I make for Masonry is something that I want people to have, to be able to use throughout their lifetime, to even become heirlooms that they could pass down through future generations. I'm not out to try to lessen the value of Masonry. Now, someone may argue with you right now, because if you'd been to the Craftsman's Aprons Facebook page this morning, you would have seen my April Fool's joke on.
What was it?
Oh, I put on there, said this morning, when you see the Craftsman's Aprons page for today, April 1st, 2017, it says, press release 4/1/17. The Craftsman's Apron in a bid to in a savvy business move to attract more business has decided to go to appeal to the masses and lessen the quality of our product by using the cheapest materials available. That's it was all April Fools.
Well, we see 2 aprons in your background and an easel and some paintbrushes. Are those favorite aprons of yours? Do you want to tell us about those?
Oh, sure. Well, this is my office, and this is where I do most of my work. So you'll see one very cluttered desk behind you, which you can't see the very cluttered desk that I'm sitting at. But this is where a lot of the Craftsman's Aprons magic happens. So this particular apron right here is a historic apron. This apron dates to about 1780. Wow. And it's just one of the aprons I have that you can see in this video in my office.
So that's the historian in you.
Oh, that's the historian in me. That's the inspiration for what I do, is looking at the original artifact. And this particular apron right here that you can see is my personal apron. I designed that apron for a lodge I was a member of in Nashville, where we all wear the same member's apron, and I designed that so it hangs in a shadow box that I made, so I can take it in and put it up whenever I need it. I can look at it when it's not being worn.
So you mentioned your April Fool's joke. Do you have a team? Is it just you? Do you?
I have a team of two, me and one other person. I have an office assistant that has worked for me for 3 years. She's actually the daughter of one of my best friends who was a Mason, and she helps me with communication, with packaging, production, that type of thing. And she's been very, very good at what she does for me.
So you do custom designs.
So, yeah, let me tell a story of this apron, if you don't mind, while we have this one up on the screen.
Oh, no, absolutely. Tell us.
So this is a great story right here. So, you know, when you were asking me if I do custom things, and this is a perfect example. Most of what I do is custom. The things that you see on my website are stock designs for everyone to look at. But most people call me and say, Patrick, can you do, and then we'll discuss what they need. This particular apron, I got a phone call about 3 years ago from a young guy locally here, and he said, Patrick, you make aprons, right? And I was like, yeah. And he said, can you make me an apron? I said, well, I probably can. What do you want? He said, I have no idea. So I said, all right, come over to the house. We'll sit down and we'll discuss what is important within Masonry for you, and I'll make a design from that. So he came over and we chatted for a couple hours, and he talked about how Masonry is for him self-improvement, from working from the rough ashlar that we are towards the more perfect ashlar that we hope to be, that we are only here for so long, that this mortal life is all that we have now to work with and whatnot. And how when he came to Masonry and he knocked on the door to Masonry, how it was opened to reveal these things to him that have allowed him to improve himself. And so you can see everything I just discussed, what he told me, in this design that I created for him. And this particular brother, great guy, fantastic guy, he has opportunities that so many of us don't have. He gets to travel the world and see places.
Wow.
And he takes this apron with him, and he visits lodges when he has time to visit. This particular brother's name is Chad Jeffers, and although you might not have heard his name before, he is one of the principal guitarists for Carrie Underwood.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. So your apron is seeing the world.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Excellent.
So when you receive a request, we just heard about the process, which I'm going to assume is typical. You talk to the person, you see what's important to them, and it makes its way into your designs. Is there anything you won't do for somebody? How crazy will you go? In other words, how exotic, how different, stylistically speaking, sure. And also with reference to the symbols that you will add.
Sure. So there's a limit of things that I will do. Everything that the Craftsman apron produces has got to be something that the craft would be proud of, the entire craft. And so I will use the principal symbols that we see within our degrees in the designs that I produce. I can tell you that I've had plenty of opportunity to make more aprons, and thus more money, that I've turned down because it did not fit within those criteria that I laid out. Here's a good example. When all the controversy was in the news last year with the Confederate flag and all of its history and symbolism that, you know, that our modern ideas put on that. I had a brother call me up and say, Patrick, can you make me a Masonic apron where the entire body of the apron is a Confederate flag? And I had to tell him that, yes, I could do that, but no, I won't make that apron because that's un-Masonic and it has nothing to do with Masonry. And, you know, for the same reason, I've actually turned down people who wanted big American flags over the face of their aprons. Not that it's that I'm not patriotic. It doesn't reflect Masonry as a universal idea.
Yeah. So Patrick, I'm interested really in how you design aprons. Talk to us about the designing process. I understand you do not use screen painting techniques, iron-on, or heat transfer methods.
No.
So what do you do?
So there's the principal ways that I make aprons. Well, the design process, I talked to the brother and kind of get a feel for what they're looking for. Do they want something that is bullion embroidered like that?
What's that?
Embroidered.
Yeah, that's wire thread. That's what you see most Grand Lodge aprons made out of, that type of material. Or do you want something that is a painted design? And so if it's a painted design, there's two avenues that I use. One is this hand sitting at that easel and painting an apron after it's designed, or I use a commercial grade art reproduction system also, which is I can create the design digitally, digital paintbrush, and I can change it and I can tweak it and I can get a lot of detail in that, more so than I can with a hand painted design. That's a bullion apron right there, and that's my apron. So I use a commercial grade art reproduction system. It's the same type system that you use when you see good qualities of the Mona Lisa or, you know, other fine works of art that are done on canvas. It's the same type method as that.
Have you done any Knights Templar aprons? I know there's a big interest in.
You know, I have been asked to do some Templar aprons, but they were principally for framing to hang on walls because they couldn't be used in the areas where the brother was requesting them. So I don't have a lot of Templar designs. Now this is a Royal Arch apron that I did that was designed from a mid-19th century style, and this apron is actually worn by a Royal Arch degree team, or one set of these aprons is worn by a Royal Arch degree team in Oklahoma.
Excellent. Well, you touch upon two interesting things that I would like to ask you. I'll ask you one, and I'll let Fred ask more questions, so I don't take over. You just mentioned this one is worn by a degree team. Lodges entire lodges can have their aprons made by and designed by you, correctly, with things specific to them. Yes.
Now, I have to say here that lodges should always know the parameters that they can work within their own grand jurisdiction. Some grand jurisdictions are very strict and define size, shape, colors, that type of thing. Other grand jurisdictions don't have any of that, so it's really more open for interpretation. But I have worked with a number of lodges where I have produced, and that's really what excites me, is to produce something for a particular brother or a group, a lodge, that only reflects that lodge or that brother. Because I think our badge as a Mason should be very important to us, and that we should have a personal relationship with. So when I create a design for a lodge, it's a design that only that lodge uses because it's not really designed for anyone else.
Patrick, I'm a big history buff too. History was my subject of study also. So I got a few history questions for you. First of all, as past master of Paul Revere Lodge, AF and AM in Brockton, Massachusetts, I'd like to know about the Paul Revere apron you have.
Ah, okay. So now this is kind of interesting. It's called the Paul Revere apron because it has a jewel on it that is often attributed to Brother Paul Revere, and which is, I have to admit, Fred, there's absolutely no historical evidence to tie this directly to Brother Paul Revere. He was a silversmith. There are lodges in Massachusetts that still use jewels that he did make, but that particular jewel is seen in France and in New England at the same time period, and you see different variations of it. So I've referred to that as the Paul Revere jewel, though it's not. There's no documentation that says this was made specifically by Most Worshipful Brother Paul Revere.
It's still a very nice apron.
Oh, it's gorgeous. So I don't want to bust your bubble there about that.
Well, have you thought of duplicating George Washington's apron, or have you done that?
Well, I have hand painted the design of the Washington apron that's in the Museum of the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania, that I call the Founding Fathers. And I call this apron the Founding Fathers because there is, again, no real direct traceable link to this apron, from this apron to George Washington. There is secondary references to it, but no direct primary source saying this was worn by George Washington. So I call it the Founding Fathers apron. However, I have seen personally up close 2 aprons that do have documentable
Evidence?
Thank you. Evidence that Washington wore it and when it was worn. And one is the Watson Casul apron that's owned by Alexandria Washington Lodge, number 22 in Alexandria, Virginia. And the other one is the Mount Nebo Lodge apron that's owned by Mount Nebo Lodge in West Virginia. The Mount Nebo apron is actually now on exhibit at Mount Vernon, Washington's home, and you can see it in the museum there. But I have not reproduced either one of those because those are privately owned artifacts. And until someone gives me permission to make a reproduction of that, it's not within my ability to just copy it straight forth without approval.
Have you considered Ben Franklin as a historic figure to apronize?
Apronize?
To apronize. So I think
Ben Franklin, word today. Apronize
is a. I think that would be a great subject for Masonic Apron. He's somebody that I've read a little bit about, but not as much as I would like to. But I think you may have just planted a seed for something that I have to spend some time on in the future.
How are your aprons welcome across the Grand Lodges and jurisdictions? Are they always welcome with open arms when, you know, some Mason shows up wearing, you know, something different than the others?
Yeah, exactly. And that's an excellent question. And the answer to that is in some jurisdictions, yes, they are viewed as works of art and something the brother should be proud to wear. And in other grand jurisdictions, they're looked on as something a little, a little different than what everyone else has. So different within Masonry is questionable.
It's suspect.
And yeah, and here's why. I can tell you why that is the case. Because until I started making aprons like this 25 years ago, there is no one living today that is a Mason who ever saw anything like what I'm doing. And that is because for the last 140 years, what I refer to as the big box regalia manufacturers have only offered what now everyone thinks is the traditional square-ish apron with a triangular bib. That's all anyone had ever seen. No one had ever seen a brother wear anything differently until, someone didn't fail to tell me that I shouldn't be making these. So I started making them. And,
Well,
and now some people are going, oh, this is really good, but they've got to do their homework to see that they can wear that shape or style within their grand jurisdiction or not. And even then, when it is acceptable, I have had brothers standing right next to me make a comment like this: sure, it's beautiful, but you can't wear it. And I'll have to ask, why? What do you mean? Oh, it's in the code. And I'll say, that's interesting, brother. I designed this apron with this shape and this style for your Grand Lodge. Why can it not be? And he goes, well, it's in the code. And I say, can you show me? And the answer is inevitably they change the topic because they cannot show me. It's just not what they're used to seeing. So in their mind, it has to be wrong.
Right. And you are providing a historical education in aprons. Absolutely. Doing this because it would seem right from the arguments that you're explaining that you encounter that this is an abnormality, that you suddenly came up with the idea of painting aprons and this was unheard of in Masonry, but that's not the case. Do you want to tell us about the history of handmade Masonic aprons?
Sure. We got 2-3 more hours.
Exactly.
So here's the annotated version. So when Masonry was introduced into this, what would eventually become the United States, it was the colonies in the early 1700s. I like that one. That's one of my... I'm sorry. I get excited when I see that.
Yeah. Great.
Well, now you have to tell us something about it. Why is this a favorite?
Well, it's a favorite because, again, it's a historic shape that I was able to use elements. This is a past Grand High Priest's apron from Arkansas. And it absolutely fits within their regulations, but it is so different than what most people are used to seeing that it's really, not only is it a beautiful apron, it's beautifully produced. It's it really is stunning in its appearance because it's fresh. It doesn't look like a copy of a copy of a copy. It was made for an individual. And things that he wanted on there, I've worked into the design. So, that's, tell me, have you seen a past Grand High Priest apron that looks like that anywhere else?
No, I absolutely have not.
Yeah. So it's something that he will wear with pleasure to himself and honor to the fraternity. And that's what makes me happy. Anyway, excellent. So we were talking about history. So from the 1830s, the 1730, 40s, all until through the Revolutionary War, through Western expansion of the United States. At that time, when men joined Masonry, it was expected of them to provide their own regalia, unlike today, where most people join the craft and are given an apron and are told, oh, go take that home and put it in a drawer and save it for your funeral. We got this box of old cloth aprons up here at the lodge. Just use one of those when you come back. We're the only country in the world that does not expect our brothers to provide their own regalia today.
Amazing.
We expect to go to lodge and have an apron provided for us. However, in the historic days of the United States, brothers were not expected to have something given to them to wear. They were expected to provide their own regalia. And as such, they had to go out, find someone to make it, find someone to decorate it if they wanted it decorated, and produce it for them to wear every time they went to lodge. And that was the first 150 years of Masonry in this country up until the time of the Industrial Revolution, the 1870s. And what happened at that point in the 1870s was there was a perfect storm of things that happened all at one time.
Machines.
Well, not only machines, because you have the Industrial Revolution where the industry is geared up for mass production, but it also coincided at the same time as the golden age of fraternalism, where a large spike in fraternal membership at that time because men were rushing after the Civil War to join these friendly aid societies, Masonry, the Oddfellows, Woodmen of the World, the Grange, all of these other fraternal organizations, and they all used regalia, very similar to Masons. And so the big box regalia people were making that, but that's not the only thing. The other thing that made it kind of a perfect trifecta for change was something that most people don't realize or think about today. In the 1870s, 1880s, that was the start of the mail order catalog. And now I can sit in my home in Franklin, Tennessee, and where I'm going to lodge in the 1870s, but I don't have to go find somebody to sew me an apron. I've got a catalog being delivered to my house that, hey, look, I kind of like that one, and I can order it and have it shipped to me. And so those three things, Industrial Revolution, the golden age of fraternalism, and the rise of the mail order catalog, produced this ability to make it easier for regalia. But the people that were making it offered you a lot of different choices, but you got to choose from what they offered. You didn't get then the ability to say, I want it this shape, or I want it this color, or I want it this embellishment. You went through their catalog like we're used to doing on Amazon today and saying, I kind of like that one, I'm going to order it. Where we moved away from that individual design and craftsmanship to a mass production of that. And so for the next 140 years, that's what we were offered. And now today, when someone is seen wearing one of my aprons in the lodge, so he often gets the looks of, what is that you're wearing? That's not what I'm used to seeing. Can it be right?
You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
So have the aprons gone through phases, of trends throughout the years where different, what would you call emphasis?
Well, what has happened most recently, and this is within the last 120 years within craft masonry and the regalia that we wear, is that we've gone to where really the only embellished aprons that are worn by officers of a lodge or district officers or Grand Lodge officers. And all the brethren are expected to kind of sit on the sidelines with a plain white apron. And that's just the way it has been. And because we are all Masons and we know that Masonry never changes, we shouldn't question these things. And therefore, we have to take it as gospel. And now we have this mentality that, oh, until I'm an officer or I'm a Grand Lodge officer, I'm just borrowing an apron I'm pulling out of a box before I go into lodge room. And that's not the case. It's just what people are used to doing. It's their tradition. And in fact, Fred, I'd love to tell you, ask you, this is one of the things I talk about in the presentations that I give when I lecture on the evolution of the Masonic apron. I talk about the use of officer aprons. And whenever I'm giving this in a lodge and the officers are there with their, in their stations with their apron denoting their rank, their officer's place. And I get to this point and I say, and I ask the lodge, why are you wearing a officer's apron? Why are you wearing an apron that has the master's square on it? And I never really get this kind of look of surprise. And the answer of, well, that's the apron I was installed with. And I said, okay, what? I said, but no, it's not. You may have been given that apron to worn when you were installed with, but what were you installed with when you went into that position? You were installed with the jewel of your office.
Correct.
Nowhere, no grand jurisdiction that I've seen says you were installed with the jewel and the apron of your office.
Right. You're correct.
You're installed with and that just is that's a very important point to me when people go, well, this is my, well, you should have your own personalized apron that you should be able to wear throughout your life as a Mason. Your badge as a Mason is only your badge as a Mason. And and so you wear the jewel of that position for a year or however long you serve the lodge, but it's only the call to service that you're wearing it for. It's not because you've earned the right to own it. It's the lodge has voted to put you there. And your badge of a Mason should reflect you. So these officer aprons that everyone's so used to seeing, you know, they're just, it's tradition at this point, but people believe they have to have them when in essence they don't.
In my jurisdiction, Patrick, in Massachusetts, the outgoing master is presented a past master's apron, and that becomes his apron. Is something that you also design or could design?
Oh yeah, I do a large amount of past master aprons, which I think that's a great gift. That is a great gift from a lodge to a brother, and you know, the things that I do can be personalized to that individual. But so after he has now served that year as a past master, he can use this to identify himself as such, having served his lodge in that position.
Yeah, you just spoke just recently about lectures you do. Tell us a little bit about your lectures, your different lectures, and are you available to speak across the country?
I am, Fred. The principal lecture that most people call me to deliver is entitled "Admit Him If Properly Clothed: The Evolution of the Masonic Apron in America, 1740 to the Present." And this is an hour-long PowerPoint presentation with a lot of images that shows the very beginning of the craft in what becomes the United States, through the 19th century, through the 20th century, and into today, and kind of looking at the future. And I show the things that have influenced changes during this timeline presentation. And we talk about why aprons change from a shape or design or that type of thing to today. And that's principally the lecture that I'm asked to give. Most often I also have a lecture on the importance of Masonic regalia and why we shouldn't just use our regalia as an afterthought for ourselves when preparing for lodge.
Elena?
Yeah, Patrick, you have on your website different kinds of products. You have ties, glasses. I'm going to be showing some now on screen. Is this something you're looking to expand into more? Are these sort of just companions for you know, minor companions to your apron making?
So yeah, it's I've done this in an effort to broaden the foundation of what the Craftsman's apron offers. Again, with anything beyond aprons, it's still a quality product. If it's not a quality product, I'm not going to offer it. The other thing is, is that the things that I offer on my website are my design. I've created the custom ties. I've created, there's a decorative skull that I helped the artist who carves these for me to lay out, but they're still artwork that I drew, that I gave to him to use. The ties are all my design. The glassware is my design. So it's this belief that the craft is worth quality products for everything that I offer. But yeah, I'm constantly looking to add more things that brothers would enjoy to the line that I offer. So always come back and visit the Craftsman's Aprons page.
Oh, and I have to tell our audience, you have craftsmansapron.com, which is where you would find the aprons, as I understand it, Patrick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that are sort of based, which you can always find there or for a period of time. But then if you go to Patrick's, the Craftsman's Apron Facebook page, you can see posted there a custom made, one of a kind, as we've been talking, made for a specific Mason to their liking with their symbols, and those are really amazing. Both sites are worth the visit. The Facebook one, I had a lot of fun, picking through the photographs, because each apron really spoke volumes as to the variety and the different interests of Masons.
Yeah, so I encourage everyone to go to the Craftsman's Aprons Facebook page, because you will see a lot of my custom work there that you won't ever see on my website. And when you see these things on Facebook, you'll know that they've already been delivered to the client that has ordered it, because they always get to see it first before I share it to everyone else in the world. But yeah, you'll see quite a range of things that I've produced on our Facebook page.
The thing that really interests me is the Perry Masonic tie.
Mm-hmm.
Perry Mason fan. Does it have anything to do with Perry Mason?
Perry Mason. Now, it's a Perry who is a Mason, but it's actually a tie designed for David Perry, who was Grand Master of California 2 years ago. And he, if you look at that design, Fred, it's kind of interesting because it has a lot of the working tools and images of masonry woven into it, but the colors, the burgundy and gray, were chosen for David because he actually lives in Napa Valley, and so there's also grape clusters and the burgundy color that we chose for that tie.
Well, I'm showing this one because you can see the tools in there. I thought that was really cute. Very cool, and you can see other things in there, or lots of things. A beehive.
There's a lot to see. And one of the things I do with my ties is I create a subtle design that a brother would want to wear every day, not just to lodge. And it doesn't have this big flashing neon square and compass on it that's irritating to the eyes. But a brother would recognize this tie and appreciate it, where someone on the street, if they saw you wearing it, it would just be a good-looking business tie.
That sounds like artist Ryan Flynn, who puts all these little symbols in his paintings, and you're looking, and you have to really, sort of really look at the painting to figure out what all these symbols are.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
And so
no, I was just going to say this particular design on the T-shirt was an early design that I did, and everyone they've called it steampunk masonry, and actually this predates, because I actually took some of the elements from this from historic Masonic documents from the 1820s and 1830s and produced this design. So there's nothing new. It's actually quite old, everything in this design.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that just goes to show that the quality of the time symbols, symbols across time. Yeah. And speaking of, do you think you've sparked a revival of these aprons? Because I have seen it is not, I can only imagine, as you explained to us how it was when you first started, like what are you wearing? What is this? I can imagine there's concerns about, lodges and grand lodges. They don't want Masons to show up with a design that they made yesterday, and they think it's really cool, and it's horrible to look at, right, but meaningful to them. So I can understand the need for it to be good quality, and I have not heard of Masons, please don't get ideas to go and make your own really try to make it pleasant for everybody else. Yeah.
What?
No, I can see how you freaked everybody out, when you first started. But today, do you think there's more? There's a gaining. These aprons are gaining a revival of sorts, more recognition. That people are getting used to the idea. More?
Yes, and no. Yes, they're getting more recognition, and they're becoming more common to be seen. The longer that I've been in business, but there is a particular grand jurisdiction right now that is not really. They're discussing it to some point, but it's more to encourage their brethren to stay within the guidelines, which is exactly what needs to happen. Educate the brothers what they can wear within their jurisdiction and what is appropriate and what is not, and And I think that the thing that needs to happen is that the brothers need to learn what can be worn as their badge of a Mason, and be encouraged to do that.
Exactly. And know that, they can get, well, they have in you somebody who will listen to them,
Yes,
and what's important to them, and work with them one-on-one to produce a really fantastically amazing, image that I still don't know how you weren't an artist. I'm
here's one thing. When people sometimes question my motivation for doing these things, and I will tell you, if I was out in the world to make a lot of money, do you think I would have chosen Masonic regalia for the business I would have gone into? No, not so much. But I want to. I'm passionate about what I do within the craft, and I want to give back to Masonry something that it has given. I want to give back to the craft that has given me so much. That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm unwilling to give garbage back to something that has given me so much.
Oh, definitely not doing that. And we see an easel there and paint.
Mm-hmm.
Is that actually where you put the aprons and paint them?
I do. You can see the outlines on the easel there where I've done some. Actually, I turn this around just for the camera because I'll turn it around so I get the natural light from the window that face the easel from the other direction. But yeah, those are the paint brushes and the paints that I use. I use acrylic paints. Why? People ask me, why do you use that, Patrick? And I can tell you it's very simple. Because I'm not a professionally trained artist, and it's easy for me to use.
What about the care of the aprons, the painted aprons?
Yeah, so they are very durable, but they're like anything else. If you abuse it, it's going to show it. So I always encourage people who buy my aprons to get a case to put them in, to protect them when they're not being worn. And when they get home, to not just stand that case up in your closet, but to lay it down flat. That keeps the apron flat, and it's gonna make it happier, and it'll last you your lifetime. The other kind of, if you're talking about apron care and maintenance, people ask me, well, Patrick, what do I do if my apron starts to discolor? If it starts getting yellow stains on it? I said, well, the first thing you need to understand is that happens because the oils from your hands are discoloring the white leather. So the first thing you need to do is, whenever you're sitting down, just don't hold your hands on top of your apron.
Wear gloves.
Yeah, wear gloves. But honestly, it will keep you from soiling your apron as quickly that way. Anything that you use is going to become worn. It's going to eventually show signs of wear. But you can do things to take better care than just folding it up or rolling it up and stashing it in a drawer.
Are they washable if you spill a little wine on them or something?
Well, Brother Fred,
I would ask that question.
No, I would never encourage anyone to take a painting off their wall and wash it.
That's the answer to that one.
So, it's leather particularly is very lambskin, unless you're very, 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 very careful and a little bit about taking care of leather stuff. You can do more damage trying to clean it than you can just wearing it and enjoying it.
Well, Patrick, go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, one last for me, maybe one last off the wall question, Patrick.
Sure.
A lot of historians or authors, they like to write. Are you published, or do you not get into that at all?
Oh, now you're going to open up an ugly can of worms for me, Fred. So I have articles published in the Encyclopedia of Tennessee History. I have a couple of articles in the California Freemason magazine, one in the Scottish Rite Journal, and I have been wrestling for the last 6 years with writing a book on the history and evolution of Masonic regalia.
I thought you might. You look just like you were going to do that.
And I need to do that, and I'm desperately behind, and I have no excuse why I haven't, other than, and this is kind of one of the things that that may shed some light on why I enjoy doing design so much. I have not severe, but fairly pronounced dyslexia.
Oh.
And even though I have all the academic credentials and have written a 400-page dissertation and all this, it's painful for me to write. So it's not something that I will always try to find something like design work to do other than sitting down and typing words.
Interesting. Well, our viewers are going to be wanting to know this. Can you give us an idea of your price range? We got an idea from visiting your site, but I think you can explain it better.
Sure. So the stock designs on for decorative aprons start at around $200, and this is all my original art, and the price range can go up depending on whatever investment you want to make in your regalia.
So $200 up.
$200 up. The most expensive apron I've ever produced was $1,600.
Ooh, okay.
And here's the joke I often give people when they say, you know, what does it take to do an apron like this? And I said, there's only two things that limit what we can do, and that's our imagination creating a design
and your budget.
and your budget. So those are the only two things.
So we know 200 is your lowest price, and up to 16,000 you've gone. So what is your
not
usual?
1,600, not 16,000.
Oh, sorry. Did I say? I'm sorry. Yeah. No. Okay. What is? Do you have like a usual range, like where the price range usually?
A custom. What would be a typical custom apron price?
So a custom apron using the commercial grade art reproduction system is going to run you. It depends on how much original art I have to produce.
Right. I can imagine it's a difficult question because I can imagine there's all kinds of.
And until I know what the design is, it's hard to say what it is. But a window for custom work it's usually going to start at about 300, and usually is going to quit $500 to $600. Now, we can take it way beyond that. But, you know, that's for the painted aprons. Bullion and aprons, custom work's gonna start at about $350 and go up to about $1,000.
Okay. Well, Patrick, unfortunately, we have run out of time. We had a great time with you. We always show a short video at the end of our interviews that we call the Artifact of the Month. And for this episode, if you could stay with us, Patrick, so we can say goodbye at the other end of the video, we have the third part of a 3-part series of how Brother Jim Macbeth makes original designed Masonic knives. And so Frederick went to his ranch, to Jim's ranch, with a camera and actually had him produce one of his knives for us on camera. And we have been showing you these videos in parts. This is the third and last part. It's about 8 minutes long. So if you stay with us, we'll say goodbye at the other end of the video.
Okay.
Series.
I am Frederick L. Milliken, Executive Director of Phoenixmasonry.
And I am Elena Llamas, Director of Public Relations for Phoenixmasonry. Now, Masonic artifacts do not have to be old to be collection and museum worthy.
Today, we are going to show you, as our Artifact of the Month, a 3-part video series on Jim Macbeth's beautifully handcrafted Masonic knives.
Frederick was able to visit Jim at his home in Bernie, Texas, and film these wonderful videos. Make sure to catch all 3 of them on our social media and YouTube channel.
What we call file work, we have to take the rough edge off of the knife and make it to where it's smooth. And we do that strictly with using a file. We take the file and we literally go through and literally file this thing. then we spend probably 35 minutes or so, 40 minutes, better part of at least over half an hour. And it takes to do the file work on this to get the thing edged out so that it's smooth to the touch and to the feel. And then I sand it down. Let me show you the sanding process that's taking place. And the grits that we use. This is the sanding process, and this is the finished part of the knife work. When we get through, we're actually going to show you the polishing of it, and I think you're going to be surprised. You can see how this is right now. It doesn't have a shine to it. When I get through with it, and you'll see it on the video, you'll see this really shiny. But to get to that point, we go through 80 grit, 100 grit, 150 grit, 220 grit, 320 grit, and lastly 400 grit. And we go through all that staging of that particular sandpaper, and we're not finished yet. What we have to do then is go through what we call micro mesh sanding. And this is a set of sponge covered sandpaper, if you will. And there is 9 steps to this. And it goes all the way from 1,500 grit to 12,000 grit. Once you've got through steps, so the sanding part is the time consuming. If you think that's the boring part, then you're correct. So, but it has to be that way in order to get it smooth and to the look we're going to want. So let's now take this knife, and I've got another knife too, the same way. And let's take this knife over to the buffer and polisher, and let's see how it takes us to go and get this looking pretty. The first step that we have is called, we use a 3-stage buffing process. This is the Triple E process that we need this for. We put some Triple E polish on it. We have a block of that. So we're going to turn the buffer on. This buffer is a slow buffer. It's not your normal 3500 grinder or spinner. This is 1750. It's called a slow grinder, bench grinder. So you put a little of this rouge on there, and then you actually go to work on this. Okay, that's the first stage of this. And the next stage is called white diamond. So we're going to take this buffing wheel off and put a buffing wheel, and we're going to use some polishing material called white diamond. And it too's got a piece of rouge that's on there, and then we're going to go through that process. Take usually a rag towel after that process and just hand buff it. Brother Fred, if you could zoom in on this. I've got one other stage, but there's, you can see how that good is. I'll put some light on it. Look at the other side. Okay, now I'm going to put one more stage on it. I'm going to put wax on it. It's carnauba wax, which is going to basically seal it from the outside wax-wise. Now the stain that I use is also a sealant, so I only have a one process instead of 2-step. It's 1-step: stain and the sealing stain. This is just regular good old carnauba wax. Okay. You got a good shot on that? That's the finished product. And you can see all I have to do now is just remove the tape off the brass and off the blade itself, and I'll use some cleaner to clean that off. And then I usually put a coat of oil on it. And then all we're doing is waiting to, if I'm going to make this Masonic, then I'll just put, and I'll dig or carve out, drill a spot here in the center of this handle and put one of our square and compass pins in it. If it's going to be for a friend who's not a Mason, then we'll just leave it like this. Or if they want another emblem, we can usually have several other emblems we can put into it. So if you want to see what the difference, now this is shiny, but it's not near as shiny. It's not been polished. This particular one, I stained the same as this one. This is a different wood. This wood is African mahogany right here. Again, it's some used knife pins that I had. This has got a beautiful mosaic square and circle brass pin with black epoxy center. And I will be making this Masonic, I think. And then the next thing I'd have to do is to order a sheath from my sheath makers. And because the color, I'll probably have this, I'll ask for a dark shade, which will go really pretty with this. This wood is an exotic called Craddock, and it also comes, some of it comes from Africa. There's other countries that have that. I'm not sure where this one particular piece of wood came from, but it's a beautiful exotic, got a lot of beautiful grain into it. Very, very pretty.
Okay, I think that we've gone through the steps, and that's how we make a knife at Macbeth Knives.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Been a pleasure. Thank you for being here.
All right, I want to take this opportunity to thank Jim Macbeth for donating a knife to Phoenix Masonry, which we were able to raffle off to help with our charitable, you know, the usual cost of running this charitable organization. So thank you, Jim. And thank you, Patrick, for treating us to such a great learning experience. And we can't thank you enough for coming and joining us.
Great to have you with us, Patrick. Wonderful.
Fred and Elena, it was a pleasure to be here with you today. I had a lot of fun. I hope your viewers will enjoy this as much as I have.
I'm sure they did. Oh, I have no doubt that they did. And well, that's all we have for you this time.
I'm Frederick L. Milliken.
And Elena Llamas.
Parting on the square.
Pots.